Welcome back to part 2 of this little series in which I'm showing you how we can prepare our sketchbooks with some neutral collage papers and then sketch on top of them to give a more multi-layered approach. If you haven't seen that first one, I'll put a link in the description. Also, I wanted to show you how working in a short series, whether it's 2, 3 or 4, gives you the chance to experiment, because here just the same collage papers, I then used a fountain pen with some grey ink in it and added a little very bright watercolour. Here I can do something rather different. I've got my inspiration, which is from York. It's one of the gates in the city walls, and I thought that would be fun. And what I'd like to use is, rather than using the fountain pen like I did before, I'm going to use a dip pen and this brown walnut ink. So let's pop some in there and we'll see how we get on. Oh, just splattered it everywhere. I'm going to call that texture and pretend that I meant to do that because I didn't. So just as before, I'm going to work without any pencil under drawing, and I'm not going to time myself this time because, hey, I don't need that stress level, do I? But I probably will still do a fairly continuous line. My dip pen is a calligraphy nib for italics, so it's quite nice because it has sort of a thick and a thin. It's going to struggle on this rough paper, but I'm just going to incorporate that into the style of drawing I'm doing. What I wanted to show you is that you can simply prepare your sketchbook with collage elements and so forth way ahead of time, and then once you know what subject you're going to be drawing, you can choose a suitable page and develop it, months later if you want. So this walnut ink isn't the darkest in the world, but I thought it might be quite fun for quite a rustic subject. That brown is rather cool, and we can just work there and see what happens. I'm not aiming for super accuracy, I'm just trying to get a feel of the place. We spent a lovely day walking around the old walls and just enjoying the shambles and the market and all this stuff in York, and it was lovely. Didn't do any urban sketching while I was there because it was blooming cold and very wet, and I was with my husband and didn't think it was fair to make him sit around while I was sketching away. So it's kind of fun to try and keep the feeling of actually being on location in this sketch. I'm pretty much ignoring the collage underneath. I just thought this collage would work. I don't know why, but I guess because of that vertical there, which I thought was good for the tower. And people are a bit scared of working in ink because obviously you can't rub it out. But if you look at what I'm doing, my lines are really not accurate. They are pretty scribbly. And if I put them in the wrong place, do you know what? I just put in the right one and somehow our eyes just join the dots. Thank goodness. And it adds to the charm of the piece. Now I am using a dip pen, as you can see. It has got a little reservoir on the back to make it less dipping, and make the ink last longer. It is pretty blobby and wet, so it does write very wet as a pen, and I'm going to have to be careful not to smear my work and put my hand in it. So if needs be, I'll go back and dry. Let's put these little statues in. I need to do some research about what these statues are. Don't know whether they're, you know, kings and queens of yore, or, well, yeah, no idea. Love these round towers on top. We've got some sort of coat of arms going on here. Got these lovely two dark windows there, little arches. We've got something going on there. And of course, what we do need is that big arch, and we need the glimpse of the archway through it. I'm missing out the car, I'm missing out the woman with the pushchair, because they're not part of my story today. Let's just see, there's a bit more wall action going on here. Obviously carries on, and there's, I don't know, some sort of building behind there. And even in those few strokes, you know, how long have we been doing this for? Just a few minutes. Oops, got something stuck in my pen. We've captured a little bit of the feel of the place, I hope. I'm going to darken this down. Definitely need that. Got to sort of get the feeling that this is an arch as well. See, this is the pedestrian arch, and we had the vehicle arch. So let's get that there, and then we can darken some of that behind. We've got this doorway. I'm going to leave out some of the railings and things in front, because that just complicates life. And if it's plenty complicated enough. Now, I don't know if you could just see there, this really rough watercolour paper that my journal is made from, and the pen was just catching the fibres, which I've certainly noticed before. It's quite a pain to work on this paper. Very absorbent, so it's hard to do wet in wet watercolour. The fibres get caught by the pen. It looks beautiful, it's got a lovely deckled edge to it, but actually it's a right pain. It's sort of an eco paper that I made this sketchbook out of ages ago. So more form over function, really. Looks great, bit of a pain to use. Let's put some blocks and things in there. Let's, on the closer one, get some block work. Not going to put every block in, because life is certainly too short for that, but just want to give the impression of these wonderful walls, and so typical of York, where you've got these almost complete medieval walled city. Let's do that. I don't know what happens over there. Oh, there's some sort of notice board here. Quite like that because we've got another little arch going on here. Probably only a notice for a bus tour or something, but hey. Quite like these sort of lines on the pavement because they sort of lead your eye in and through. So let's do some of that. And then maybe do some of that. And this is a bicycle lane or something, markings on the road, but I quite like the markings on the road, so I'm going to put those in. Need to be careful, as I say, I don't smudge the really wet areas. So just come up here. Just thought I'd put in a bit of this tree behind. I think it's behind the wall. So it's quite nice to have the excuse to have some more organic marks rather than all the hard marks of the buildings and walls. So just put those in there. This arch down here needs to be dark as well. Because of the car, I can't actually see what's going on underneath. I'm guessing the wall continues here, so I'm just making that bit up a tad. I like some block work on this bit here. Strengthen this sort of curb to bring that forward. Maybe even make that a bit thicker. I think isn't the most opaque ink I've ever seen in my life, for sure. So we might just put a little wash of it behind there as well and extend it beyond some of the drawing. Maybe bring some forward like that. Quite liking that rough. They're just diluting it slightly. I'm just diluting it on the brush. Possibly not enough. There we go. Splats I did by mistake right at the beginning. Just going to do a few more. In general, I would say one splat looks like you've made a horrible mistake. A few makes it look like you've intended it. So let's make that intentional. I'm going to let this dry and put on some little highlights using my Posca pen or some gouache or something like that, I reckon. So again, in this first one, I used an acrylic marker and some colour. So I think I am going to do something different, and I'm going to use some white gouache and use that for my highlighting. So I've just popped some into the lid of this and added a little bit of water, just hopefully enough to let it flow. I think it would be nice to have a bit of light coming through this arch. I think it would be nice to have few sort of little highlighty bits. Like that. Maybe just to highlight a little here, there. The light catch my little chimney pots. There. Emphasize my archway. Just going to blend that. And that. And then just as I did before, and I will use the same paints, I'm going to use those little Viviva colour sheets because I use these lots when I'm out and about. And I might use a different orange to the one I used because that was really pretty vivid. See if that how that works. Let's put a bit of orange here. Maybe orange chimney pot. Just a little bit onto the road to pull that across. Splats again for my theory of one looking like a mistake, two looking on purpose. This is a little bit of diluted ink. Just put a few more blocks in. Then just come back and add a few little bits of detail. See if a second layer of ink will slightly darken down that. Because you know that's the focal point of this, isn't it? That's meant to encourage you to walk through and go and explore. And where we have the greatest contrast is where our eye looks to go. So hopefully that will just pull us through a little. Just doing a little cross hatching on some of these bits of pavement. The final thing I'd really like to be able to do is to darken those crosses on the towers, these arrow slits. They just make it look like a wonderful castle. Some of my branches and my tree. So there you go, a very quick sketch of a gate in York to show against the other one we prepared at the same time. Again, a very quick sketch of the stable house opposite where we stayed. Two little sketches done with different media on prepared collage papers, and those sketches are super simple, but the collage just shines through and gives it a little more interest and depth, I think. Hope you agree.